Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this somewhat controversial and exciting topic, navigating sustainability, green versus greenwashing. My name is Tatiana. I'm with PwC Norway. It's a company that is helping businesses, organizations, and governments to navigate this ever-changing and complex sustainability landscape. We do it through a wide range of services, from helping companies design and implement their pathway to net zero, to embed sustainability in their core strategies, and of course what we're very known for is the ESG reporting, helping the companies create a verifiable and transparent reporting. Greenwashing has become ever present in many of the industries, with the airlines using claims like sustainable aviation fuels, with energy sector claims around biodiesel, eco-design labels in fashion industry, and recyclability claims in packaging. In the 2024 PwC Global Investor Survey, 44% of investors said that they believe that the sustainability claims in the corporate reporting of the companies include unsupported claims. To reduce the risk of greenwashing, the EU has published a number of directives, including this Green Claims Directive that is upcoming, which introduced a number of minimum requirements. It's asked the companies to demonstrate that a product is performing substantially environmentally better than a common practice. It's asked to substantiate the performance with the scientific evidence, and also to demonstrate the impacts and performance from a life cycle perspective. The regulators are also scrutinizing the company's environmental claims. Taking airline industry as an example, a couple of months ago, the European Commission started an action against 20 airlines within EU and outside the EU for so-called greenwashing practices. Earlier this year, the Dutch court claimed that KLM misled customers with the campaign that was aimed to improve the company's environmental image. Shipping industry is finding itself in the center of these discussions, with many of the companies making bold claims around the decarbonization efforts, the choice of alternative fuels, and their greener technologies. However, can these claims can they be substantiated? What are the companies and especially their marketing teams need to do to ensure that the messaging the company is giving is actually aligning with the reality of their sustainability efforts? And what will it take to meet the bar once the regulations are come to force? To help us explore these questions, we have a distinguished panel today of experts. Please welcome Bjørn Kjærand Haugland, CEO of Skift Norway, Øistein Jensen, Chief Sustainability Officer at Odfjell, Sebastian, Beluanus, General Manager, Alternative Technologies and Competitive Intelligence at Wärtsilä, and Sebastian Ebbing, Group Sustainability Officer at MPC Container Ships. Bjørn, I'll start with you. You have 28 years of experience in the shipping industry. And now you are in Skift Norway as one of the co-founders, which has a mission of accelerating the transition to the low-carbon fuel economy. Could you tell us what made you make that change and jump the ship?
Well, I'm trained as a naval architect, so let's start with that. And I had 28 wonderful years in DNV, many of those in Asia. And when I lived in China, I really kind of wake up in order to see how to see the need for business to step up to create a green transition. So I was the Chief Sustainability Officer of DNV for many years, and then I created Skift while I was in DNV. And DNV is a funding partner of Skift, and they are also a member of Skift. But in 2019, we decided to kind of grow this initiative. And that is a cross-sector collaboration platform. We are today 70 members, all working together to accelerate the green transition. And most importantly, to build competitive forces within the companies. But you asked why I left DNV. I mean, I'm wonderful time in DNV, but it was basically to do more. So today I have founded 5 companies. I've invested in 10 more, so I'm into 15 startups. And one of the companies are actually here at Nordshipping, and that is Seabus. So Seabus is one of the most advanced companies with respect to autonomy. And we have our first vessel operating in Stockholm, Øistein, for 2 years, which is the first vessel with autonomy, electric propulsion, going back and forth in the harbor of Stockholm. Yeah.
Very good. And with all of your experience, I've seen you around here during this week. What are your reflections on kind of the company's green initiatives, where the shipping industry is heading, and the shipping companies' claims around their journey?
Well, I think shipping is as, and I hate to tell you, it's as ordinary as all other businesses. I mean, we very much like to say that we are the most efficient way of transporting goods and all of that. And of course, that is true. But my point is that in order to go to zero, which is kind of the mission we all work on with respect to emission of CO2, shipping has a lot to do still. And I mentioned I was trained as naval architect, so I know quite a bit on where we were in the middle of the 80s and where we are today. A lot of good stuff is going on, and you see it here on the Nordshipping. But we cannot rest on that. It's a lot more to do. And I listened to Andrew Forrester, who was here earlier this week, which said, "We are a dirty industry." So, you know, so I think that just is the perspective which should kind of drive us forward even faster than we are doing today.
And Sebastian from Wärtsilä, your company is supporting, providing solutions and technology for the shipping industry. Where do you see the main challenges and on the way to net zero that everybody is claiming?
There are quite a few. I would, well, first, yes, we need to do more. We need to do faster. We need to be quicker. So that. But if you look at us as an equipment technology provider, so we do quite a few things, right? So first of all, we started looking inwards, and we committed to attaining net zero in our own operations by 2030. We did that in 2020 with the baseline in 2020, not 2008, but sort of the actual numbers, and we're halfway there. So we are on that path, and that is all, it's sort of set in stone, verifiable. So we are on that trajectory as well. But bigger, what we bring to the table is and also by 2030, is a portfolio of products which enable all of us in the industry to operate in a sustainable way. So we've committed, and we're fully developing now also a technology portfolio to allow net zero by 2030. So that's making things possible, basically. But
for your own company?
For our company, but also for our customers. So the own inward-looking Set for 30 initiative is reducing our own emissions to net zero, and at the same time we're building a product portfolio that allows our customers to attain net zero in their operations. So it's twofold. The big challenge, at least from my perspective, for the shipping industry is scaling. A lot of the technology starts to be available, a lot of the technology is being trialed, is we know what will work, what won't work, we know roughly what the cost associated will be, but we need scale. And for scale, you need a lot of investment, and for investment, you need a lot of stability. And for stability, you need a set of rules and regulations which is clear, fully defined, without any ifs, buts, or maybes. And then, that train will start to run. But there's a lot of inertia in the whole industry. But it all starts with having that regulatory frame fixed in place, and then the scaling should start to happen, I hope. So it's about scaling and about speed.
Sebastian, do you have any reflections around the kind of the path to green and the challenges that are in the shipping industry?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. As MPC is operating 60-ish container vessels all over the world, we have set up our strategy based on 3 primary pillars. So we heavily invest in fleet modernization, so bring down the consumption, the demand consumption of our vessels to the absolute minimum. Secondly, we have sold a lot of vessels quite recently. I mean, nearly 10 to 15% of our fleet is sold over the last 6 months based on the fact that we believe in a really strategic and comprehensive fleet modernization pathway. So sell old ships and invest in new technologies, invest in new ships. So recently, beginning of the year, we had delivered the NCL Wärtsilä and Haugland, so our very first methanol dual-fuel methanol vessels, which are quite up to date in terms of technology. So that is definitely one of our pillars which we build on. And then there is a pillar which is quite crucial for us as shipping industry, not only for MPC container ships, but for the whole industry. It is the ramp-up of e-fuels, of renewable energy, of renewable CO2, and of e-fuels availability in the ports. And that is something which we can create a demand on, definitely, but we cannot influence the supply side. And we do think it is quite a pillar which we build on. However, it is not only up to shipping to at least set up the sales for e-fuel production and e-fuel availability. That is definitely something which we need to focus on. And that is a discussion we had over the last weeks as well, if we do not believe that e-fuels will be available, think about other technologies at least to ensure we can reach our climate targets. So that is our stake in terms of transition planning, plan ahead what we are doing, plan ahead what we strive to achieve. And definitely those 3 pillars are the key focal points of MPC for the next 5 to 10 years.
Øistein, do you have any reflections around the kind of the
path to zero? If I have a microphone that's working, now we can hear me. Well, that is a topic that we have been working on a lot within Odfjell, and I don't going to repeat that whatever we have stated in all these kind of presentations. I would like to just draw attention to the demonstration that we did last month, where we sailed one vessel. We retrofitted a vessel, first time a chemical tanker with sails. Prior to that, we have invested a lot in energy-saving devices, achieving a 53% reduction compared to the benchmark before we fitted those sails. We had tremendous good results using those sails. We filled the vessel with sustainable certified biofuel and across the Atlantic with 85% emission reduction. That's very close to zero, and it's a demonstration of a path that is possible to take. And it's available now, and you can do it with measures that is available now. So that's just one example. Our company, we are fuel agnostic. We will be prepared for whatever that is available, but I think that is just a good example of showing what is possible with things that is available today.
And that's there's a lot of initiatives that are happening, but my question is still around net zero claims. Every company is talking about net zero. Will that technology or will these initiatives be enough to bring us there, or is there still a lot of uncertainties? And is there a lot of focus on kind of these initiatives versus the overall picture?
So the net zero, if I can start, the net zero can be a challenging topic and a challenging term. Because what do you mean by that? And that's why we have, in our transition plan, we have taken a clear opinion with regards to offsetting. But as I presented, we have used 100% sustainable biofuel, but still there are elements that the carbon intensity factor of that fuel is still not zero due to the well to tank perspective. And that means that we will probably never be 100% zero because of the well-to-tank perspective. So all the development of the fuel and all the scope 3, that is extremely difficult to take the last part. But we cannot let that be a big problem, because the biggest problem is the scope 1. So 85% of that is related to the scope 1, and if you're able to bring that down, if we remain with the last 5%, that can be handled. I'm not saying that we don't like offsetting. We think that is almost like a license to pollute, but we need to look at how we can solve that the last part as well. But let's not be the kind of the perfect net zero, be enemy of the good. So we need to focus on what we can do with the majority of the emissions.
I see you're nodding.
Yes, yeah, that resonates a lot. So indeed, let's not let perfect get in the way of good. But also, if you think of it from another perspective, I think net zero has served us very well as a term. Because for legislation to be implemented and accepted, it needs to be simple enough to be able to explain also, this is what it is, this is what this does. And from that perspective, net zero is of course a very, very powerful term to allow politicians to explain, this is what we are targeting, this is what we are doing. Now the nitty-gritty work starts to define what does that actually mean, how do we measure, how do we verify, how do we do all this, how do we take that last step that we need to do. But indeed, if we can get from 100% to 95% reduction, we should be very happy, and we should still work on that last 5%. What we should not do is throw away the 95% reduction because we think we may not be able to take that last 5% step.
And I would also like to credit the IMO, because now the regulation is from well to tank, or well to wake emissions. So that means that you need to, because the ship owner we can control whatever we put on a tank until we burn it and they end on the power on the propeller. Now we need to consider the upstream as well. So the new regulation with the fuel intensity and the fees under the fuel intensity on GFI, it's a well to wake perspective, and that's a very, very good thing.
I would echo that. I mean, especially considering the very last 5% of the scope 1, respective scope 3 emissions. I mean, as long as we consider the whole value chain, the whole energy value chain in shipping, and strive to be as close as net zero or climate neutral along this whole value chain of energy transition, it provides flexibility to use technologies at the well to tank approach. Instead of really try to get rid of the very last 5% on board during the combustion process. And especially considering that the IMO is now following this term of well-to-wake and life cycle approach, it is quite a massive step ahead to have an agreement on a UN level for a whole industry internationally that provides certainty how to calculate life cycle emissions and how to reduce it over the time. So that's quite a good shout out to the IMO. Agree.
Just a last quick question on net zero. When I'm reading shipping companies' reports, net zero ranges from net zero in whole value chain, including scope 3, net zero in the life cycle, as you mentioned, and then sometimes net zero in own operations, including just scope 1 and 2. Is that okay to define make your own definitions of the net zero, or what should the companies be kind of conscious about as they're?
I think you should be very clear on what you're saying. And coming back to the greenwashing topic, we have tried to be very clear on what we mean on the different scopes. We're saying that we have an ambition to be net zero on scope 1. We have a vision to be net zero in scope 2, and also on scope 3, which is very challenging. But I'll just give you an example. 85% of our scope 3 emissions is related to fuel production. And that will be handled when we think of that as a well-to-wake perspective. So that we kind of solve itself by the regulation. And that leaves us the last 15%. And what's the last 15%? 85% of the last 15% of our scope 3 is related to our use of tugs. And that will also be solved due to fuel. And that leaves us just a very minor part of scope 3 that we need to handle through the work with our suppliers. So I'm quite confident that that will be happen. But I will also encourage everyone, if everyone was focusing on their scope 1, scope 3 will be solved.
Bjørn, you had the...
Yeah, just since the topic is on greenwashing, of course, it's a lot of greenwashing in shipping. It's a lot of greenwashing all the way around North shipping. So what is important, and for that sake in all other industries, so the business sector is greenwashing, period. So I think what is important is what you said as an introduction. So the EU is setting quite strict law-enforced requirements in the Green Climate Directive, mainly towards consumers. So consumers can, know what they are buying and not. So this is a new set of regulations, which basically said what many of you have already mentioned. You need to document what you are doing. If you really read the Green Claim Directive, it stated that you need scientific documentation of what you are doing and what you are saying. So in the way you can say whatever you would like, but you just need to be clear, and you need to back it with documentation. And I think this is just a tool from the EU to enforce the Green Deal, and I welcome it because it will spur a lot of innovation in technologies and so on that can help us to document this in a good way. So I hope really that this new directive also will, that the shipping community also will look at it. It's just a good thing that we are even better documenting our claims.
Sebastian, you wanted to say something to add to the...
No, I mean, taking a look at the criteria, life cycle assessment, you need to document it, you need to be clear on the concept and methodology which you lay down for your targets, etc. And considering what shipping is doing, I mean, broadly, not everyone, but broadly in shipping, what are the targets of companies, who's setting it, how it's calculating it, a lot of those criteria of the Green Claims Directives are already ticked. I mean, we have a life cycle assessment if you follow as a shipping company the IMO legislation or the European legislation, for example, under fuel and maritime. So life cycle assessment ticks box. If we consider, for example, that it needs to be science-based, I would argue that even though the IMO strategy is science-based, even not following the science-based target initiative, however, it is a profound scientific knowledge laid down how we want to proceed with the international targets on climate on the IMO level, and arguing that shipping companies needs to follow it. It is, I would not say nearly impossible. It is possible to breach with the Green Claims Directive, but if you're really ambitious and if you really try to comply with everything what is out there and have a profound strategy and transition plan, you're already halfway done to comply with the Green Claims Directive and prevent greenwashing in a sense that shouting out and claim that you're quite sustainable without doing anything. So that is my take on the Green Claims Directive, considering what shipping companies, at least the peers of MPC or Odfjell, is doing. So that is already halfway done.
And I wouldn't say that shipping is greenwashing. I would say that greenwashing can happen. I think that a lot of companies are quite good. They are very clear on what they are doing. We try to do that. We are not shy of saying that we emitted 1.2 million tons of CO2 directly last year. And that is a problem, and we are working with that. When we are preparing our transition plans, we need to argue whether we are science-based or not. And the problem there is that there's multiple different initiatives. The Science-Based Target Initiative is one private initiative. Is that different from any other science-based? So that means that it leaves you with the possibilities to interpret and select the science you want as well. So that's why we try not to do that. We're trying to be very clear on what we are doing. This is the numbers, this is the details, this is the actions, what we are doing, to try to drive reduction in intensity. And I will also say that in intensity, because we're talking a lot about intensity, the climate doesn't really care about intensity. It cares about the number of molecules in the atmosphere. And the shipping industry has been doing tremendous good job with regards to intensity. We have reduced that with 25%, probably more. But the problem is that the absolute emissions has increased. Why it's happened? Because we have built larger vessels, bigger engines that are more efficient, but still emits more. And we are trying to be very clear about that, and that's the kind of the address for greenwashing as well. We're trying not to claim something that we are not. And especially with the new directives, and especially around the CSRD and ESRS reporting in accordance with the ESRS standard, we wanted to also make sure that we did not do that. So we run our reports through various different kind of filters to ensure that we didn't have those kind of typical greenwashing claims, because that could happen, but we're trying not to do so. We're trying to be very focused on facts.
Yes, Bjørn?
Yeah, so just to build on that, at least our experience within, we are working across industries. Obviously, most industries greenwash without doing it, you know. It's just that they are unconscious on you mentioned the ESG reports, I mean, marketing material. So it's just like you're not thinking about it. But the Green Claim Directive just require you to think a little bit harder on how you communicate what you are doing. Use the word climate friendly, better for the planet, these kind of terms. You should think twice, as you said, how you somehow put that out. And we have also a global campaign in Skift, so we have something we call the Guide Against Greenwashing. You can sign up towards some principles. We have more than 700 companies signed to that. And that is more a learning platform where companies share how, where they are in doubt. Can we do that? Can we say that? And because this is not kind of clear what is greenwashing and not. So it's more like a attitude you need to strengthen going forward, how you use these claims about your own performance. So, and we also have this AI-supported generator. So you can put a text into that generator, and then you can get it verified if it is greenwashing or, if it is danger for greenwashing. So I would just say that, greenwashing is something many businesses do, but not on purpose. It's just that you would like to, put a good language around good initiatives, and sometimes you just take it too far. Yeah.
And the regulation supports that as well. There's some regulation that almost encourage you to do greenwashing.
Yeah.
I'll give you two examples. The EU taxonomy. One of the criteria of the EU taxonomy is that you have the EEDI, the design index, is that you're 10% below. Then you meet the criteria. We don't transport fossil fuels, so that means that we could argue that some of our vessels meet the criteria for substantial contribution to climate change under the EU taxonomy until 2020-25. As long as you also have the technical possibility to run on a net zero fuel. Yes, we do by biofuel. So that means that we could take a vessel that emits 70 tons of CO2 a day and call it aligned with the criteria of climate change mitigation, substantial contributions to the target. So that's one of the alternatives. The other thing is that you can also argue that you are taxonomy aligned by the climate change adaptation requirements. So they are quite vague. They're quite old, and you can argue that underneath there as well, you can be compliant under the taxonomy alignment on adaptation, on the same kind of economic activity as you are not compliant. So there are kind of loopholes and challenges with the regulation as well, and especially the EU taxonomy. So I really encourage that Sustainable Platform is doing something with those criteria.
You stole my question about taxonomy. And Sebastian, do you have?
Yeah, two reflections. First one, I would politely disagree saying that sustainability statements are kind of a marketing tool, based on the fact that CSRD and ESRS provided a very profound, very clear structure on how companies, irrespective if they're operating in shipping or elsewhere, need to disclose non-financial criteria. I mean, non-financial information about their company and their processes. And it isn't the case that you, by drafting those statements, are allowed to have a massive text and shiny and polite words how the company has reduced the emission. It is quite clear what you need to report on, how the metrics and how the disclosure requirements needs to be presented. So it is kind of a framework where you either or comply or not. And if you comply, which a lot of companies needs to do, then you need to disclose it in a certified format. And that is something which changed over the last years, definitely. So I would even argue saying, with CSRD and ESRS, it isn't anymore any marketing tool, instead of really a systematic disclosure on how companies perform on their targets and their emissions. Second reflection on the taxonomy. I mean, we discussed it a couple of days ago, and I fully agree saying all those criteria, especially under climate mitigation technical screening criteria, are kind of too ambitious and not realistic to achieve in terms of zero tailpipe emissions. I mean, we haven't had any engine out in the market, not any fuel cell, nothing, which has a zero tailpipe emission. I mean, it is not possible. And considering that, it is not only the case that we have 2 weak criteria, but also 2 strong criteria, which, I mean, implies into the market that industry could achieve something which is physically, technically not possible. And I would agree saying the sustainable finance platform need to take a step back, need to review all those criteria and to find a quite pragmatic and quite profound step of how to assess economic activities according to sustainability. EU taxonomy isn't do the trick at the end. I'm 100% sure. Even though banks and financial institutions are using those criteria, it isn't do the trick.
Mm-hmm. And Sebastian, you, from the technical side, I would love to hear, go ahead.
Well, I mean, from an equipment and technology provider's perspective, we have been doing this for decades. We have been clear about what our product's performance is. That is verifiable, that is science-based. We can prove that in the lab. We can prove that in operation as well. So in a way, nothing has really changed for us for where we have the biggest impact. And of course, where we have the biggest impact is the emissions of our products in operation. That's your emissions, essentially. So in a way, we get off easy because we have been doing basically verifiable, science-based claims for decades. And one thing that's also changed, and that's something that I also still wanted to highlight, is that in the recent years, and this is a process that started a few, 5 years ago, we have also been much more open about actual emissions in operations, things like methane slip, for instance, right, for LNG-powered vessels. There have been multiple studies now by independent RTOs, research and technology organizations, which have actually gone on board, measured what is the amount of methane slip from these engines in actual operation today. What are the actual numbers? And that, I think, is something that's changed over the last few years and also helps to, it all contributes to us as a sector being able to fulfill on that net zero promise or claim.
So where the technology has been there, you said, for years. Where is the shoe pressing? How do we get to kind of the scalability? Where are the customers?
Simple answer to that. Very simple answer to that. Someone needs to pay. But that's true. You can get whatever you want if you want to pay for it. And that's the biggest challenge. Whatever fuel we are going to use, because if we double the price of fuel, if we use double more green fuel in our company, we would take all the way of that. Then we will be bankrupt if we had to double the price of the fuel. So someone needs to pay, and that means that next time someone wants to have their car transported to their home because they're buying a new green car, they need to pay the extra. Someone needs to pay, and I think that is one of the big challenges, and to identify that. The industry is there. We know a lot of the solutions. We know what it takes. We know the technology. We have the regulation, but we need the regulation also to support that. But we need also to make sure that we are able to balance that cost through the value chain.
Do the customers know the price implication on their products?
I think that is very different in the different segments. From a deep sea tanker perspective, our customers does not really care. They don't want to pay any dollar extra. If you are closer to the end consumers, like if you're transporting cars and other products, we know that they have a different dialogue with their customers, and some of those big IT tech companies as well. But in the end, we really see that the customers really struggle of wanting to pay the extra if they don't have to.
Bjørn, you have.
Yeah, I just have a small secret. I mean, going forward, it's not that difficult. It's basically about stop burning coal, oil, and gas. So that is what we need to do over the next 25 years. In order to do so, we need to do regulations. That means that we need to put more price on burning coal, oil, and gas, all fossil fuels. So they need to be taxed more. And then we need to incentivize new technologies. So you somehow need to make a playing ground for that. So that's number one. And number two, obviously, overall regulation is important. Here in Norway, I see Haugland and Lasse is sitting here. Here in Norway, we had politicians which were ambitious. They said that in order to go into the fjords, we shall be fossil-free within 2025. That was said in 2019. And then the industry started to prepare themselves. Haugland was able to do this 1 year before. But then, due to pressure, the politician backed off and said, okay, maybe 2025 was too early. Let's wait to 2032. My point is that we need to have also politicians which are able to stand to that pressure, set targets long enough for the industry to prepare themselves, but then they know that those who invest benefit from that. So I think that is also part of the solutions going forward.
But that's also that stability that I was talking
exactly.
about, that
you know what
enables the massive amount of investment that we need.
So if you don't have that regulatory framework, you risk to invest, but you don't get the competitive advantage of your investments. Those who are waiting are more competitive than yourself. So you need to have that predictability on politics.
I would argue you need to find the right partner. You need to find the right partner for your project. And considering your project, which seems to be turned out massively good, it is the same like our Misano vessels. So we found the right partner at the right time with the right demand for at least climate-friendlier shipping services around Scandinavia. And based on that fact, we at least sought out the de-risking and the question who's paying in the end for, increased transport costs, increased fuel costs. And it is all about finding the right partner at the right time and having a solution at hand which at least fits the question of the client. Definitely a strict, reliable framework, either be it the IMO or EU. We prefer definitely the IMO. However, a quite ambitious framework which provides a level playing field for all shipping companies, which nobody can escape from, that would be definitely beneficial and assisting at least any business case, any calculations, any projects going out and going further down the road, definitely.
Mm. And Bjørn, you're now working with many different industries. Is there something that the shipping industry leaders can learn from the other industries?
I think to put it the other way around, I think many other industries can learn from shipping, because shipping is such a global, collaborative platform, which we see here at Nor-Shipping as well. So, but I think what you can learn from other industry is that, again, back to the greenwashing directive, which basically, as we started up to say initially, is towards the consumers. So sometimes when I are at these events at the shipping, I feel the shipping community is kind of very much thinking about themselves. But you are part of a bigger value chain. And the consumers, the cargo owners, that part of the chain will get increasingly more power as technology is enlightening up the whole value chain. So prepare to get naked. Prepare to get naked, because technology will put a light on what is going on, not only in the shipping industry, but everything from the start to the consumer and from the beginning to the end of the product. So that is where technology will help us out. I think shipping is in a very good position because you have a broad, global collaboration around this. It's a lot of technology development underway. But to be kind of more, connect more through the entire value chain. I think that is an opportunity to learn from others, but also to teach other industries of the great things going on in shipping.
And speaking about regulation, it's kind of hard to ignore the big elephant in the room called omnibus. Do you see that as a setback in any way, or how are your, Sebastian, you are most impacted by omnibus?
Yeah, I mean, we have prepared for CSRD and ESRS for a long time now. We would be obliged to report the first CSRD compliant report next year for covering this year, 2025. We have done it already. So we had one dry run, so 1 year ahead. Now affecting by omnibus, it is a mixed feeling. On the one side, we have done a very good job in at least improving our governance structure, set up processes, set up data management solutions, increasing the awareness within the organization. On the other hand, we do think that the idea of CSRD and ESRS to provide a standardized format of how companies should report and disclose their information on sustainability is quite a good concept. And it's quite, I mean, it is supporting us, and at least MPCC is welcoming it as well. However, we do see some advantage in reducing the administrative burden now, at least for smaller shipping companies, which does not imply that smaller shipping companies should now waive their ambitions, should waive their preparation. There's a reason why we at MPCC said we will stick to CSRD, we will stick to the ESRS, even though we would not be regulatory forced to do so. But we have prepared everything, we have set it in stone now, let's go ahead, let's move on. And definitely it is one of the points which turns out every time again, you need to have, I mean, kind of a certainty how regulation can at least affect your business, can affect your business strategy and the operations. And if we run in a situation where regulation is set into force and withdrawn after a couple of months or years, that is not a good environment for companies, at least to prepare themselves and their processes.
And Øistein, you've been through the auditor scrutiny this year. Yes,
we have reported in line with the ESRS standard. Just to be clear for those of you, when we're talking about CSRD and ESRS, CSRD is the directive to tell you to report and decides which companies are in scope, and the ESRS is the standard whether you report. But we need to remember that the omnibus is not only about the ESRS, it's not only about the CSRD, it's also other regulation, trying to look at it holistically. For us that has been through the reporting following the ESRS standard, I think it is a massive task. It is a substantial amount of information. The idea was that that information should be comparable. I think that they've slightly failed on that. About 80% of the reporting under the ESRS standard is a narrative descriptions on how you are actually operating, and down to the numbers are much less. And I think that the ESRS standard is unnecessary complex. You have disclosure requirements, application requirements, and they are back and forth in the document. So I would really encourage that is simplified. With regards to the omnibus that's challenging the CSRD, and with regards to the number of companies that will be in scope, I think that is a quite sad thing. For us, we are in scope, we will continue to be in scope, but I think that you should, yes, make the ESRS standard easier, but it should be valid for more companies, because there are a massive amount of companies that will not now be in scope or will be delayed, and that will be a challenge. And I think that will also increase the gap of those companies that are now in scope and those that are in wave 2 and 3, and they might not come into wave, and they don't need to report anything. So I think I would like to lower the threshold and make the content of it and the standards easier.
And Sebastian, any final thoughts on you with the companies trying to legitimize their sustainability claims and in this decarbonization journey? Is there any advice you can give the companies on this journey?
If there's one word that comes to mind, it's flexibility. We talked a lot about stability of regulations, the availability of fuels. What is it that you can actually purchase by when? So if you do one thing, focus on flexibility. Focus on what kind of technologies can you purchase, get in-house, get your hands on, that allow you to be more flexible and more efficient. That's my sort of key takeaway from a technological perspective.
Bjørn, last remarks?
No. Yeah, so last remark, I would just kind of say that, this transition we are going into is a huge opportunity. It's a huge opportunity to strengthen the competitive advantage, because the whole playing field will change as we go along. So I would just leave you with that. Look at it as an opportunity. Look at it as an opportunity to strengthen your operation, to make it more efficient. And, good sustainability performance is also good business. So good luck with that.
Thank you very much. We are now on time, and thank you, the panelists. You made my job very easy. I almost didn't have to ask any questions. So thank you for being here and listening, and good luck on your greenwashing transition.
Thank you. It was fun. Thank you.